In this module, we're going to look at the time value of money. This is a very important concept. This is the fundamental building block of all finance. So with the materials that you learn in this module will be used over and over again in the rest of this course, as well as all future finance courses. So the first tool that I'm going to introduce in understanding the time value of money is a timeline. Put it very simply, it's just a way for a shorthand for us to put all the relevant and important information onto a simple structure. So a timeline, as it indicated, has to do with time. So this is, refer to these as period 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Underneath it, we'll write out the cash flow. So this is the amount. It can be $100, $1,000 for each time period. And we also include the interest rate. One thing that we want to talk about, period, in doing time value of money, period is very, very important. Period is just the frequency, and it can, so your cash flow can occur on an annual basis. So those will be your annual cash flows. Think about tax refund. You get tax refund every April 15, so that happens only once a year. Other cash flow, the most common example is stock dividends. They occur on a quarterly basis. Many consumer loans and finances occur on a monthly basis. You pay your rent each month, your car loan each month, your utility each month. So monthly compounding or monthly frequency is the most common. Daily frequency or getting cash flow on a daily basis is less frequent for consumer, but very common for businesses. So if you are working for a business or you're doing the finances for a business, you'll see daily cash flow as a common denominator. When we are writing down the cash flow, we use a positive sign to indicate inflow, so that's money coming to you, a negative sign to indicate outflow, and these occur at the end of each period, and that can be important. So for example, let's say period 1, the end of year 1 is the same as the beginning of year 2. So if you get, say you get $10,000 here, you get $10,000 at the end of year 1. That's December 31st, not January 1st of year 1. And interest rate, just want to put a note in here. In finance, we think of interest rate as the rate of exchange between today's money and tomorrow's money. And there are many other names that you will encounter throughout this course. And whenever you see the term discount rate, cost of capital, opportunity cost, required return, rate of return, interest rate, all of these names refer to, will be used in the place of interest rate. It is okay if these names do not make too much sense to you at this point. You'll encounter them throughout the course. Just remember that when you see in future chapters, they will refer to required return or rate of return. That takes the same place as interest rate when we compute the time value of money. So let's take a look at how we apply this. The first concept we're going to take a look at is future value. Future value is the amount of money that will occur later on in time. So this is the value that will happen later on in the timeline. It represents the ending value of an investment. In this chapter, we are going to look first at the example of a lump sum. Lump sum means that the cash flow occurs only one single time. So the timeline for such a problem will look something like this. Let's say you have an interest rate of 5%, and so in this particular example, we'll have cash flow, let's say $1,000, and we may ask, how much would this $1,000 grow to in the future? So let's take a application. So in here, let's say you invest $1,000 for 1 year at 5% per year. What is the future value in 1 year? So if you invest $1,000 and you earn 5%, so 5% is 0.05, that means you get $50 in interest. Now, with the $50 in interest and the original $1,000 altogether at the end of 1 year, you have a total of $1,050. Now, we call the $1,000 that we start off with, we call that our principal, and the $50 we earn is, of course, our interest. Now, let's say instead of just saving your money for 1 year, you decided to leave the money in the bank for another year. Now, how much money would you have 2 years from now? So in year 2, we're going to start with, instead of $1,000, we now have $1,050. So our interest is $1,050. Again, we are earning 5%, so times 5%. That gives us an interest of $52.50. So with the $52.50 in interest and a starting value of $1,050, our new future value is $1,102.50. So we have the $1,050 plus the new interest of $52.50. So if you invest $1,000 for 2 years, you have $1,102.50. So we can continue this for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but it can get tedious. So in finance, we actually encourage people to be lazy and efficient. So we figure out, well, maybe we can find a shortcut. So I'm going to introduce the shortcut now. The shortcut is that we know that if we start with present value, so $1,000, you grow by the interest rate. So this is the rate of increase for the time period. This is a compounding formula. So when you are earning interest on interest, the process is called compounding. So we can apply this formula to what we have just seen. If you invest in 1 year, so this is I also want to introduce some notation that we frequently use. So FV is abbreviation for future value. And because oftentimes we invest in multiple investment horizon, we use a number to denote how much we are investing, how long we are investing for. So in here, we are investing the money for 1 year. So we are compounding interest only once. So the 5% is raised to the power 1, and our ending value after investing 1 year is $1,050. If we invest for 2 years, our ending value after 2 years is $1,102.50. So I mentioned that when we earn interest on interest, which is what happened in this case, we call that compounding. This is in contrast to some very specific cases of loans where you do not earn compounding. When you don't earn compounding, we call that simple interest. Simple interest is a case where interest is not reinvested. So you get your $50 in the first year, you spend the $50, and you start anew with $1,000 every single year. So that would be the case of a simple interest. So if you have $1,000 and you invest for 2 years at 5%, simple interest means that you get 5% on $1,000 every single year because you're spending the interest instead of reinvesting it. In that case, your total interest for the 2 years will be $100 and the future value will be $1,100. So simple interest is really simple. What we want to do is introduce the concept of simple interest to help us better understand the impact or the effects of compounding. So if you think about reinvesting your interest, we knew that if we reinvest our interest, the $1,000 over 2 years would have grown to $1,102.50. Now, if you don't remember this at this point, pause this video and you can rewind it and take a look at the prior few examples. You can also download the PowerPoint so that you can flip back and review the concept a few slides ago. So We know that our future value at the end of 2 years is $1,102.50. We started with $1,000. So that tells us that our total interest, since we end up with $1,102.50 when we were starting with $1,000, so we earn a total of $102.50 in interest. So what is our compound interest? Well, we know that we earn a total of $102.50. With simple interest is only $100. So the difference between the two must be due to compounding, and we call that compound interest. So compound interest is the total interest minus the simple interest. We have $102.50, simple interest $100, so our compound interest is $2.50. And this $2.50 actually comes from interest that you earn on future interest payments. So we earn 5% on $50, and we end up with a compound interest of $2.50 in this case. This general approach, can be used to analyze compound interest and the effect of compounding, not just for 2 years, but for multiple years. Now let's take a look at another example of future value. Let's say you invest $1,000 for 5 years at 5% per year. Question is, how much would you have at the end of year 5, assuming you earn annual compounding? So we know we are looking for how much we will have in the future, so we are computing future value. I would suggest that you pause the video at this point and try to work out the answer, and you can check the solution with me in just 1 minute. So go ahead and pause your video. All right, welcome back. So let's solve this problem. We have $1,000, and we are asked to find our future value. So we have $1,000. We know that we'll be earning 5%, so 1 plus 5%, and we will invest this for 5 years. And if you use your calculator, that turns out to be $1,276.28. Okay, is that the answer you get? I hope so. Okay. Now, what is the simple interest per year on this problem? So again, you can pause the video and work out the answer. But that's relatively straightforward. The simple interest is 5% at $5. I'm sorry, 5% for $100, so that is $50 per year. And you invested this for 5 years, so if you multiply that over 5, that means we have a total of $250 over 5 years. So how much is the compound interest? Well, we have the total interest we start with $1,000 and we end up with $1,276.28. So that means that our total interest must be $276.28, because we started with $1,000 when we end up with $1,276.28. So if we have $276.28 as total interest, and our simple interest is $250, the additional $26.28 must be compound interest. Okay, we'll stop here for this video. In the next video, we'll introduce the financial calculator. So be sure you have your financial calculator with you before you start on the next video.